Hey there, Janae with Paylon Projects here, and in this video we're going to be reviewing my soil blocker. So I have the 2-inch I just washed it. I've been using it, guys. The 2-inch blocker, soil blocker. I got it as a gift. I was asked what I wanted for I think it was Christmas, my birthday, I don't remember. I said gardening stuff, and I sent them a whole bunch of links to stuff that I wanted, and this was given to me as a present. I didn't know how I was going to like it. It turns out I love it. Love it, love it, love it. I love it so much that I am going to be doing all of my seed starting in it. And I am considering buying, I think it's the 1/2-inch soil blocker. I'll put a picture up on the screen of what I'm considering. But this is my soil blocker. I think I've shown it to you all a couple different times. It has a spot for 4 soil blocks. And it works actually really well. It does have these, I don't know if you guys can see in there, these like plastic pieces right here. In the center, and it puts like a pre-made divot in the soil blocker, a perfect divot for your seed to in order for you to plant. So I will say one thing about the soil blocker is the soil that you're making your soil blocks with, it needs to be more moist or a little bit wetter than what you would typically plant your seeds in, which is fine. It honestly hasn't affected the germination rates for me. It's just, it needs to be a little bit more moist in order for that soil to stay in that block shape and in order to come out of here. On the flip side, if you get your soil too moist and like soup, it doesn't stay in here, and so when you lift the soil blocker out of the bin, you know, it just kind of like falls out and it won't form a block. And so I think that's the only learning curve with this, is to get the soil more moist than what you're used to, but less moist than soup. It's honestly not that hard. And, you know, in the few times that I've gotten the soil a little bit too moist, I just, I'll pack the soil in, make sure it's in there, and then I'll just kind of like hold the soil block up and then make sure it goes down, and they stay just fine. Like, they stay in their shape. It's just sometimes they just kind of fall out. So I will say, like I said, that is the one kind of learning curve with this soil blocker. I did lend this out to a couple people, and they basically said the same thing. Their blocks either weren't forming, or, you know, they were having a hard time getting these, and like the 1 and the 4 blocks to fully form. So you really have to make sure that you have enough soil and push down at kind of the same pressure throughout all 4. Make sure it's packed in when you push down. And then I like to, when I push it down in the soil, I like to push it up against the wall. I have a Rubbermaid tote that I have all my dirt in. So I push it up against the wall and kind of rock it back and forth. And then do that again and rock it back and forth to make sure that I have all 4 of my cells filled in properly. And then I just use my seed starting trays. So 2 years ago, I was able to get just the straight up like black trays on sale. It was like midsummer, and they were trying to discount and like get rid of all of their seed starting stuff. And so I bought a whole bunch of black trays. I don't necessarily have domes for them, but they're just straight black trays, because that's what I was using when I up potted all of my tomatoes and peppers anyways. I didn't necessarily need the cello trays. I just needed the black trays. So I have a ton of the black trays. And so I just started the soil blocks in those black trays, and it works perfectly. I can get 4 across. So in the, hold on, let me go grab one and I'll show you. This is what I'm talking about. It's just the black tray that you get with seed starting kits, or like I said, I bought a whole bunch of individual ones, and I can fit 4 soil blocks perfectly across, and then I can fit, depending on how tightly I get them in, either 9 to 10 rows. I kind of like 9. The OCD in me prefers 10 because it's a nice even, nice number for rows. But I kind of like the 9 row spacing in these seed starting trays because it does leave a slight gap in between each soil block. And so when I go to water this tray, I don't necessarily water the top of the soil blocks, especially after they've sprouted. I just like bottom fill this whole tray and then it just like soaks up into these soil blocks. So I do have to say the other thing that I have kind of found as a slight drawback is, so when I go to, you have it filled, and when I go to push it out, you know, you have to push it out and it makes an awful noise because it's metal on metal. So you push it out and you get that awful squeak. And then I kind of do a little like up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. And then it allows the full soil block to come out nicely. I found that if you just push it down, sorry guys, and then let it up, it doesn't always let the tops off of the soil blocks. And so if you kind of like squeegee it all the way up, it gives it enough like pressure and then like enough bounce to release the top of the soil block as well. So I guess 2 downfalls, maybe 3, because of the noise too. I mean, that noise can be kind of jarring, but honestly I think it's worth the effort, because I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do this year. I did all of my cabbage, broccoli, and I don't know if I did Brussels sprouts last year. But my cool weather crops that I needed to start indoors and get plant starts for, I did them in soil blocks. Just to kind of see, you know, I can buy those pretty easily, and they come in like 6-packs, or, you know, I can get a lot of those at fairly decent price. And so I didn't feel bad if soil blocking them didn't work. And so I started all of those last year. It worked beautifully. They actually stayed in the soil blocks longer than what I anticipated them being, and they pulled apart just wonderfully. The plants did great in them, and they thrived after I got them in the ground. And so what I'm doing this year is I'm going to do all of my vegetable plants in soil blocks. And with that, I am starting them a little bit later this year. I'm about a week to 2 weeks later in starting them. But my plan is that I'm not going to have to up pot. So I'm not going to have to use any of the red Solo cups. I'm not going to have to use any of the plant cups. And so I'm going to cut down on my soil for one. And that's my goal. Cut down on my soil and then cut down on the maintenance of my starts. Because I'm hoping that there's enough soil in these soil blocks to be able to grow, you know, the tomatoes on, or the tomatoes, the peppers, all of my vegetables on until it gets warm enough to transplant outside. So that's my goal this year, is to not have to up pot anything, because up potting takes up a tremendous amount of time and resources. And then, you know, I have tray upon tray upon tray of vegetables, and I don't have the space for it. Yes, I have a new setup this year, but I just, with everything that I want to start this year, between starting more flowers, starting different varieties of peppers and tomatoes, and just pure vegetables, cabbage, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, kale, lettuce. I want to try and just about start everything that I need outside of, you know, the squash and pumpkin realm. And so I just have to place it in the ground and it can go, and not have to be, not have to, you know, combat weeds and stuff like that in order to grow. And, you know, the first, you know, 6 to 12 days of germination and yada, yada, yada. I just want to start all of my flowers and vegetables and everything in soil blocks, and not have to up pot, not have to I mean, obviously there's maintenance in making sure that, you know, bugs and pest pressure, and then watering, but, you know, everything stays healthy. disease, stuff like that. There's that maintenance, but there's not the maintenance of up potting and having to buy more soil, because even, you know, in the red Solo cups, you know, they're big, but they're not as big as, say, like the nursery cans or and whatnot, but it just takes so much time. So I liked the soil blocks so much and soil blocking so much last year that I'm going to try and start all of my vegetables in soil blocks. I have 4 trays of 9 rows, so what, you know, over 150-ish soil blocks so far created. I'm probably going to go upwards of 300, maybe more, maybe 450. We'll see. Just depends on how much space I have. And then the other thing that I'm considering getting is the small soil blocker, the 1/4 inch, and that would be more towards flowers, because flowers can, you know, I can start those like 2 weeks out and just get those up a little bit and then plant those little soil blocks out directly. So that's my next goal. They actually make inserts for the dibbler thing in here. And so like I could start all of my vegetables in the little soil blocks, and then come along with my big soil blocks and just make my big soil blocks and have the 1/4 inch dibbler in, so that the 1/4 inch soil blocks fit perfectly, and then that's how you transplant into the bigger soil blocks. So you're not necessarily doing the big soil blocks straight away, because I am going to still be doing probably 2 seeds per soil block, and I'm going to have to either transplant the seedling that I choose to take out, because you don't want it competing for resources, and plant that some other way. And so I think that little soil blocker I could do, because there's 20 soil blocks in that 1/4 inch soil blocker. I could do 1 seed per cell in that. And I mean, that's 20 pepper plants or 20 tomato plants. If the one doesn't germinate, then I don't feel bad. And in, you know, 2 weeks, I can up pot to the big soil blocker and just take the one plant and put them in, rather than having to either kill or transplant the seeds from the soil blocks. So I think that will, yes, it is transplanting, but I think that is a better use of resources as well. So I'm gonna look at getting one of the 1/4 inch soil blockers, because I really like these soil blocks so much. I think they're just so much more economical. I don't have a whole bunch of plastic laying around. I don't have to up pot. I'm just going to be just plugging in soil blocks. So yeah, that's my review on the soil blocker. Like I said, love it. Probably going to stick with the soil blocker from here on out instead of using the seed starting trays. You know, those deteriorate over time as well, and then you gotta up pot so fast after those. So love the soil blocker. Downfalls, the noise that it makes, and then you have to kind of squeegee it on the way up after you are dropping your soil blocks, and then the learning curve of how moist your soil has to be. You know, I still kind of get it wrong. If I overwater it, I just add more soil. That's my solution to that. But all in all, I mean, even with those downfalls, I have nothing but good things to say about the soil blocker. So I highly recommend it. They are a little bit on the spendier side, but honestly, if you could buy a 5-cent tray, I think that's what I got these at. Maybe they're $1 these days with inflation. I'm not sure. But if you could get a whole bunch of seed starting trays and just reuse these year after year, and then, you know, you have your cost of dirt, and then, you know, the soil blocker is a one-time cost, but your cost of dirt every year, rather than having to repurchase the seed starting trays and having to replace those year after year. So yeah, all in all, positives here. I'm gonna be looking at, you know, expanding my my venture of the soil blocking, maybe later this year, maybe next year. I'm not sure. We'll see. But I think this is the way to go for me, at least. in my situation, no pressure. Again, my situation, my needs, what I'm looking forward to, and how I'm looking at my garden, I think the soil blocks are the way to go for me. You make the decision for you. It's all in how you want to do you, and go about your way. If you want to, like me, try the soil blocker and, you know, still do the seed starting trays, because I was a little, honestly, I mean, I was a little hesitant with the soil block. I was like, this is too good to be true. And honestly, for me, it wasn't. But seriously, you try it. If it works for you, great. If it doesn't, you know, I feel like gardening is definitely not a straight and narrow path. It's whatever works for you. So this is what I'm going to be doing from now on. I might throw a seed starting tray in there every now and then if I'm feeling, I don't know, I can't even say lazy, because honestly, to fill up one of these trays took me like 2 minutes the other day. But you know, if I'm not feeling like making soil blocks and I want to do a seed starting tray, I got those. I can still use them. But yeah, that's my review. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section below, and we'll see you in the next project. Thanks, guys. Bye.